From King's Landing, a declaration from the Queens of Westeros. This is a House of the Dragon podcast rooted in supporting all actors, writers, and artists on strike. House of the Dragon's actors are members of the British Union Equity, and all scripts were completed several months prior to the Writers Guild Association strike. We at the House of Targaryen Realness are dedicated to promoting media that will not interfere with the strikes, an event known as scabbing, or support companies and individuals who do not pay or support their artists properly. For more information or to find where you can give us support, visit sagaftra.org and wga.org. And to everyone on strike, our dragons are at your disposal. Dracarys.
Hello everyone, my name is Ray,
Hi, my name is Rue.
and we are two internet besties who have decided to create a podcast after House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, but mostly our favorite little blondies, the Targaryens.
Woo woo.
And it's the realest podcast that you're ever going to see.
You will never come across more real people in your entire life. Just be
Exactly.
prepared. Yeah, just be prepared.
So we're going to start the episode with a recap of what happened in House of the Dragon episode 1. And there's going to be spoilers in this whole podcast from the books, House of the Dragon,
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, just in general, my people.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to experience any of that, leave now. This is your first and final warning because I don't repeat myself.
Listen, Ray is not, she's not going to repeat herself. She's not that kind of teacher. I might remind you guys that there are spoilers, but let's be real. They're going to be spoilers.
If you complain about spoilers, you're blocked.
You're done. You're done.
You're blocked. You're no longer welcome here in our house. So our episode starts with a flashback, and it's Jaehaerys choosing his next heir, and it came down to two people.
Well,
Rhaenys.
I actually had a question. So they say whenever they pull out the scroll that there are 14 contenders.
Yeah.
Does that include the brothers and sisters not mentioned in the show? Okay.
Yeah.
I figured. Okay, go ahead.
Now to start over. Our episode begins with a flashback due to Jaehaerys choosing his heirs, and it came down to Rhaenys and Viserys, and because Rhaenys is a woman, it gets handed to Viserys. And then we'll cut to 10 years later, boo! Viserys is king, and he has a daughter named Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra is a dragon rider, and she's on Dragonback, and she parks her dragon at Dragon Daycare, and she meets up with her friend Rhaenyra.
And her friend Allison.
Her friend Allison, don't mind me. Her friend
it's
Allison.
Okay. They're one and the same.
I know, they're the same character, actually. She meets up with her friend Allison, and then Rhaenyra has a really heartfelt conversation with her mom, and then we're cut to the small council, which is a lot of the lords and lands of Westeros. And
it's all men. They all
men. And then Viserys has a brother named Daemon, and he gives Rhaenyra a necklace connected to their Valyrian heritage. And then we get cut back to the besties, and they're sitting by a tree talking about old history, and Rhaenyra is just worried that her father, about everything about what's going on right now.
She just wants to eat cake.
She just wants to eat cake and like fly away, you know? And then we are seen with Rhaenyra's mother, Emma, talking to her husband Viserys. And she has had so many miscarriages, so many bad pregnancies. And she basically told him this was her last one. And he told her, hey girl, I have this dream about a son leading us, but all right.
Yeah.
And
you're gonna have to produce a boy.
Yeah, my bad. And then we cut to Damon and his little city watch destroying the town, annoying Otto Hightower. And then there's a tournament to where they're celebrating the new heir due to the fact Emma's in labor. And we meet a character named Sir Kristen Cole. And him and Damon have a little battle. He wins, and he asks for Rhaenyra's favor. And then we are cut to Aetherius with a difficult choice, and his wife and new son die. Wah, wah.
Sad, very sad,
Very
very,
sad, very sad. And
very
then,
sad.
so the legacy of who the heir to the throne is just all up in the air, and Viserys wants no part of it. My wife and child just died. Like, girl, leave me
Don't
alone.
don't consult me at this hour. I am
Yeah.
grieving.
And then his hand, named Otto Hightower, sends his daughter to go seek comfort in Viserys, and they basically have a little like one-to-one, like, oh yay. And and then Damon is in a big orgy, basically. But
Mhm.
he's clothed and he's sitting there and he basically says, like, oh, like, air for a day, like, screw my nephew.
R.I.P. R.I.P. my
R.I.P.
nephew.
R.I.P. my nephew, but I'm built different, basically.
The haters won't agree with this, but I'll say it anyways.
And so everyone cheers for him, and then his brother gets told this and kicks him out, throws him out, and
Throws him out of the house.
Rhaenyra is placed with the heir to the throne and is told the prophecy of Aegon's dream of a song of ice and fire, and that is how the episode ends.
Yes. And what an episode it is. I think
Mm-hmm.
in terms of a pilot, this this episode has it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's got fighting, it's got gore, it's got romance, it's got incredible acting performances.
Mm-hmm.
It's got amazing visuals. We get dragons in the first
Mm-hmm.
episode, which is so exciting. We didn't get dragons until the very end of season one for Game of Thrones. And so for the first shot prior to the or after the prelude with the whole discussion about Viserys getting the lineage to the throne, the first thing we see is a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And I just it makes me so sad because I'm I missed this universe so much after Game of Thrones ended. And also it's such a homage to Dany and everything that happens with her character. I mean, prior to the dragon being shown, there's a title card that talks about how this is all occurring 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen, and then the words blow out to say 172 years before Dany. And seeing the dragon flying, over King's Landing in a happy way. Because the last time we saw a dragon flying over King's Landing, she was burning that thing to the ground because we love a revenge plot line. It's really great.
King's Landing was burnt
She
as a chicken nugget.
she didn't do anything wrong. We support her. But the last time we saw someone riding a dragon over King's Landing,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't something happy. But this time, it's when King's Landing is flourishing and dragons are abundant. There's not just three of them or two or one. There's a bunch of them, and Cyrix is just such a pretty dragon too. That yellow scales that he has, I think they look really beautiful. But what we're gonna move into now, after just discussing the summary of the episode, we're gonna give our fire and ice takes. But Tis, um, about our highs and lows of the episodes.
Fire meeting hot, 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 and ice meeting boo.
Boo.
That's cold.
That's boo. We don't like her. So
Boo.
I'll start with my
Okay.
fires. My fires have to do with introductions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this episode just sets the tone for everything to come so perfectly, and it does it in a way that reminds me of a Shakespearean play.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's right now, and especially at the beginning before Emma dies in childbirth, everything is so happy, and that's so unlike the Westeros we're used to seeing. Even in, I think the pilot of Game of Thrones, it wasn't nearly as happy and thriving as it is here. There's that scene where Rhaenyra and Alicent are walking through the castle, and everyone is full of life, walking around, chatting. Everyone just seems so happy, and it's never going to be like that ever again. So
Mhm.
that, uh, knowing the direction the story is going to take and seeing the state of everything at that time is really chilling because we only know that death and destruction is ahead of us. The opening is built also with just so many different juxtapositions because we've got a woman who is about to be appointed heir of the throne, who has dragons, already lives in Westeros, or not lives in Westeros, already lives in King's Landing, and is so
Mhm.
close to the throne and has all this power. And it's everything that Dany fought for and never got. So, like this life where dragons are ruling King's Landing and there's Targaryens on the throne. And even that scene where we see the throne for the first time and it's this throne that's covered because it got an expansion pack where now we have all these swords and
Yeah.
such that are decorating the stairs, and it's like this very very powerful throne. And the first interaction we get with someone on the throne is Daemon, and it's him and Rhaenyra talking in High Valyrian, which is something also I feel like Dany really wanted is the ability to sit on the throne,
Yeah.
speak in High Valyrian,
Yeah, she
and
never got that.
she never got that. Anyway, so and that's another thing that I also really liked. My another fire I wanted to give was to the score because they
Mhm.
play Flight of the Dragons, which whenever I hear that, I instantly associate it with Dany. I know it's not technically Dany's theme, but I mean, you can't help but associate it with her.
I would say it's Danny's theme.
I mean,
That's who
yeah,
we associate with. Yeah.
yeah. And so when Rhaenyra is flying Syrex over King's Landing, they play a little bit of the theme from Flight of the Dragons, and it's so mournful because it's like, this is everything Dany would have loved. This is
Mhm.
everything that she wanted. This is her family. This is when things were good. But it also is, foreshadowing for us, especially in this time period of the story. It's gonna get dark. It's gonna get. it's
We're gonna be so depressed.
We're gonna be so sad here, and we'll never be happy again. But
No.
no, we will never. So my fires go to the introductions, character introductions to
Mhm.
Damon's sass, which is pure poetry. And I just love the way that Matt executes everything. He is
Mhm.
so skilled in just the way he delivers his lines. I just think is so genius, and it's so very a la Damon. Like that is how Damon would speak. He would be that quick. He
Mhm.
would be that sharp, that witty, that sarcastic, that crazy guy who really just thrives off of chaos. And I think they did such a good job with that. But those are my fires. So what are your fires from this episode?
To hang off of what you said about Daemon Targaryen, one of my fires, I literally just wrote Daemon Targaryen. Um,
Period.
period. Because
Period.
after like my first watch through it, I didn't really like him. I didn't think he was a likable
Yeah.
guy. I wasn't rooting for him even when I was reading the books. Like I really wasn't attached to him. I really didn't care. Like
Yeah.
I just figured he was just Targaryen douche material,
Oh, he would be the frat boy that like in
Definitely.
the family who joins a frat, never grows up from it.
Definitely.
Like, yeah, get that kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I just kinda really love how he is tied more to his, Targaryen roots than Viserys.
He really
And
is.
Mhm,
He really is. I don't especially since Viserys isn't a dragon rider anymore, and he
mhm,
doesn't have a want to be a dragon rider anymore. And we see
mhm.
Daemon not only speaking in High Valyrian often as much as he can, but also riding his dragon, being in the Dragon Keep, doing all sorts of Targaryen related
Yeah, he even has
shenanigans.
the sword of Asenya, who is
Yes.
Aegon's sister,
Yep.
Aegon the First's sister. So, even when he was giving Rhaenyra that necklace of Valyrian metal,
Hmm.
I think he really, even though the Valerians were crazy as hell, I think he wants to keep them tied to that family root that I don't think most Targaryens appreciate.
Yeah, I think and he has a it's very clear his devotion and love for his brother, but it's
Hmm.
also clear that he also loves Rhaenyra. I mean,
Hmm.
in a romantic way, but also in a
In
way
a
that
way I'm not
he's
comfortable with.
in a way that we're going to skim over, but it's fine. Um, but it's clear that he sees the Targaryens
Hmm.
as a powerful force and a force that works better together than apart. And so, and I think that's so interesting because I feel like now watching the episode, I like caught up or I caught on little things that really show that Damon does not care about the throne whatsoever.
Hmm.
He's just a guy that thrives on chaos. He does not. It couldn't matter to him any less other than that he loves his
Literally.
brother and that his brother's on the throne. He's going to support his brother, and like he even said, like, why haven't you made me the hand of the king? And he's like, I'm not asking for the crown. I'm just asking for me to be with you, for me to be
Hmm.
the support network you need. um but there's one scene that I just never caught on where Viserys is talking um with his court after Emma passes, and
Hmm.
they're like, Damon is going to be the heir to the throne. And they're like, but he shouldn't because he's wackadoodle. And Viserys is like, y'all don't understand. He doesn't want the throne. And then it cuts to Damon in the shadows because that's where he thrives. And
Yeah.
he's standing, he's standing there. And when his brother says, "My brother doesn't care about the throne," he smiles because he's like, yeah, he gets it. I don't care about the politics that's going into this. I do care that about Otto Hightower because who he hates his ever loving guts.
I do. I did appreciate rewatching this with just Damon with that, with him kind of giving teenage boy remarks when he's like what in his 30s.
Yep,
He's
yep,
with Otto's comment about his wife who he doesn't see, and he's like,
yep.
"Well, your wife is dead.
Oh, oh,
She
oh,
passed away."
oh, oh, she's dead. Hmm. Oh, yeah.
Your shoes,
No,
your shoes are raggedy. Well, your
your shoes
mama's
raggedy.
dead. Dead as hell.
Yeah,
And
he's
even
not
asking
a
for Allison's hand at the
yeah, when
tournament, you know.
or picking Otto's son in the
Hmm.
tourney because he's like, I know how to piss off this guy, and also I think he's like, it's real easy to do. Like Otto
Hmm.
is whenever he made the remark about Otto's dead wife, the first thing Otto does is stand up, and that is like just physical proof that he knew exactly which button to press.
Hmm.
And I think that that's just what Damon loves. He just loves seeing what he can get people to do and what he can get them to say and act. And I also think he's also like, what if I test the boundaries here? What if I did say the thing everyone's thinking? What if I did the thing? Like intrusive thoughts aren't really a thing for Damon. He just has thoughts.
Yeah.
He just does. He just
He
does
doesn't
it all.
think before he speaks.
No, he does
And I'm kind of
not.
appreciating him for that.
I I admire the confidence, honestly.
Hmm.
But yeah, I his sarcasm is just excellent. I think it's such good comedic relief, but also
Hmm.
I think it just shows how witty Damon is. He's so much smarter than people give him credit for.
Hmm.
And I don't think really anybody truly notices that until Aemond comes around because he's like
Hmm.
Damon's number one fan without even saying it. Uh, he's obsessed with that
Daemon
man.
Targaryen is a girl boss, and I think it's about time we talk
So
about
I
it.
think it's about time you recognize his excellence. So, do you have any other fires for this week?
Another fire I did have was Allison and Rhaenyra's friendship, just in general.
Yes, yes.
I love the chemistry between the actresses. I love everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, no, it's a
um,
it's so sad because right now their friendship is so pure, and like I love
mhm,
the actresses. They connected on a way that like their relationship on screen seems incredibly genuine. Like
mhm,
it doesn't feel like it's anything forced. really does feel like they are two pretty best friends hanging out under a tree and studying, and then they are just pulled apart by an entire system rooted in patriarchy. It's really, it sucks. Like the world they could have had together if they could just ride dragons and eat cake.
Yeah.
If only.
And another thing I also appreciate is how the actresses played it a little fruity,
We loved
because
it.
you can tell the love was there, even if
Oh,
it's friendship
very
or
much.
romantic, no matter
Yes.
how you take it, you know? And I just really appreciate seeing on-screen female relationships, like, even though it's gonna end in tragedy, I really do appreciate their friendship
Oh
on
yeah,
screen.
absolutely. And I think I also listened to the podcast
Mhm.
that goes along with the show. And when they were interviewing the actress that plays young Allison, she was like, "Yeah, that was our intention because we do think that younger female relationships can be so intense where it's a question between whether or not do I have a crush on her or is she just my best
Mhm.
friend?"
Yeah.
And she was like, and we really wanted to bring that across screen, and that's just a universal tactic that I think helps the audience bond with those characters so quickly. I mean, by the end of the episode, the characters that I felt like that I loved the most were the women. They just did such a good job making you care so much for them.
Mhm.
I mean, like we only knew Emma for maybe 20 minutes, and her death was still shattering. I Yes, because of the horrific nature behind it, but because of how I think charismatic her character was. I mean, I still think about her. I still think about how she was bisected alive. I mean, like what a horrible way to go. I mean, like, if I had to give an ice, I would give it to that. Not because I didn't. I just like I can't even imagine being in her position.
Yeah, that was
She's
that was one of my ices too.
she's like she's wasted on painkillers, which is milk with a poppy.
Mhm.
She's not fully there, and suddenly the love of her life comes into her vision and is like, we're gonna get the baby out, everything's gonna be okay, and then you're getting pinned down by all of the nurse staff as they cut you open. And I just can't even imagine what that would be like. That is like I mean, talk about nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember, I forgot that I got dizzy when I watched it the first time a year ago. And then I was like, maybe I'll handle it better this time. And I really didn't. I mean, the amount of blood in that scene is insane. They really did a good job about, like, because Emma mentions earlier in the episode that, the child bed is women's battlefield. Like that's how we compete. That's how we serve the
Mhm.
realm, is by giving birth. And for them to show how gory and painful it is compared to, then cutting over to Damon, bashing in heads at a tournament, I think,
Yeah, when it showed the swords
yeah, like that, like,
clacking and her screaming in between.
yes, yes, like that's like it truly is a battle. And for it, I think it was really cool that they gave recognition to that moment, but also like to realize that women don't get a choice in this. She
Mhm.
didn't get a choice whether or not. I mean, like the Grand Maester asked Viserys, just Viserys though, who should live, the child or the mother,
Mhm.
and Viserys made that decision without even consulting Emma.
Mhm.
Like, uh she just doesn't, the men typically in Game of Thrones, in the House of the Dragon realm, get to choose whether or not they are fighters, whether they get to go to battle, or often they can make a decision for themselves, but women don't. They have to go to child, they have to go give birth, they have to produce an heir, they have to make sure that it's a male, that kind of thing. And it's
Mhm.
just, whoo, I mean, what a world to live in, because I could not handle that. I Oh, absolutely not. That is my worst nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, her birth, I think, is just traumatizing, I think, for anyone who's ever given birth. And I personally have never birthed a child, and neither has Rue. But what you were saying about getting nauseous. I always, even when I first saw this scene, I get like a pit
Oh
gut
yeah.
sick feeling in my
Yes.
gut for her. I really feel for her, and even some of the nurse staff cry because
Oh, because
I don't remember if any of the nurses were holding her down, but there was about three of them that were
Yeah.
I had to walk out of the room because they were crying.
Yeah.
And I think that really shows the connection they have to her and how much love they have for her and how much they are probably physically ill as well as just as much as we were, you know?
It's just, oh, I can't. Oh, well, and that's funny that you say physically ill because when it's showing the scenes from the attorney, one of the
Mhm.
I don't know what the position is called, but the guys that bring out the weaponry for the
Yeah.
night,
Yeah, one
there's
of
a
the
guy. Yeah, there's a guy that cuts over and he's hunched over and he starts vomiting from
mm,
seeing either his knight get beat to death or
mhm,
whatever he witnessed, and then it's going to cut over to the nurses then who are getting ill from
mhm.
watching Emma go through the battle that she's going through. But yeah, that my eyes goes to just how horrific that is, but I do think it's so interesting. And then my other ice goes to Otto Hightower for
Ick.
being the absolute worst scum of the earth possible. He's a slug
Shout out to Otto
and
Hightower for being the worst person in the
worst
world.
person. I mean, like, not only like so theoretically, his relationship with the king is that he's supposed to be like the king's best friend. So your
Mhm.
best friend's wife and baby just die. And you're like, great, this is a perfect opportunity for me to pimp out my daughter
Exactly.
to, and I know age is different in Westeros, but like for her to be so much younger than Viserys, and then for that, just all the factors that go into it are just gross. But it's just I can't even imagine like what I would. Who thinks of death, especially in that manner, as an opportunity, as a way to
Mhm.
move forward in a chess game? Like he's just like I kind of forgot for a moment that he did that so quickly. I remember that he encourages Alicent to go over to the king's chambers frequently. I just didn't remember how quickly he did it. He wasted no time. That man never hesitated once and never questioned it about, is this morally correct? he just he went
Yeah,
full force with it.
yeah, Otto Hightower to me is kind of a hypocrite with even stuff that happens later down the line, because when Damon made a comment about his dead wife, he immediately stands up and
Yeah,
fights.
right.
And he immediately goes to Viserys and goes, "Hey, bud, we need to talk about your legacy, heir to the
Yeah.
throne." And then Viserys, of course, has that same reaction. And then he thinks, "This is right for me to pimp out my daughter." And he's even his job as hand to the king, he's supposed to do what's best for the king, what decisions should be made to help the king, anything to help the king and better the people, blah 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 blah. But he simply is manipulates every situation
He
he's
just
in.
and part of me like so when I think of past manipulators that we are familiar with, like for
Mhm.
example, Littlefinger was
Mhm.
a very popular and well-known manipulator throughout the entire
Mhm.
series of Game of Thrones. I don't know why, but Otto almost icks me even more. What do you
Yeah,
think?
he I think he icks me even more. Um I feel
Like
like
what little
I
yeah.
feel like with Littlefinger, the buildup was slow
Yeah.
to his icks a little bit, because sometimes I was rooting for him, and sometimes I was like,
Yeah.
so because I enjoyed Littlefinger as a character just from, I think, his comments, but
Yeah.
I don't like him. But I kind of enjoyed his character a little bit. But with
There
Otto,
was
I think they make Otto more sleazy, and
they
Littlefinger is
really
kind
do.
of more polished and put together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Littlefinger is kind of he's he's like two sides of a coin.
He's a
He'll
two-faced character, yes.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah, because he was there were periods of time in Game of Thrones that he was a bit more of a gray character. But with
mhm.
Otto, I don't feel like there's any gray anywhere. I mean, he just
He he only cares about himself.
yeah, I especially
His
like with how he treats Allison and everything, it's very
mhm.
hard for me to see him as a human being. I only see him. I just it's very clear that he only cares about himself, and but the way he goes about it is so gross. It's so gross. Especially when he says, wear one of your mother's dresses. I,
Ugh.
what kind of, cannot. It's just, yeah, he's such he is ice for me. He is the ice. He's just the worst. The
Now,
absolute worst.
another ice for me to talk about is BFF.
BFF.
Viserys.
Who?
Viserys.
Oh. Bye. The man of the
Um,
hour. Let's talk about the king.
the man of the hour, the man of getting gaslit constantly.
and
Um,
and also seemingly realizing he's getting gaslit, but also at the same time being too stupid to not realize he's getting gaslit.
yeah, I mean, I really enjoy him as I enjoy him as a character for his love for
Yes,
Rhaenyra. You know,
yes,
I enjoy
yes.
that part of him. I enjoy that he was like, "Screw it, you're my heir." You know,
Hmm.
I enjoy that he trusted Rhaenyra with Aegon's dream, secret, whatever that was. But I think that he just got blinded by power. Just,
I think power and the fake sense of loyalty. Like
mm,
I think he puts up with a lot of what Otto says and does because Otto's been in his life for so long. But that's
mm,
not a justification. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to me that he has allowed so much deception to happen right in front of his eyes. I do think Viserys' character grows by leaps and bounds over the next couple of episodes.
mm.
But for where he is,
Even in this episode.
yeah, like he gets like when he eventually when he snaps out of it and it's like, yeah, Rhaenyra can lead these people, like everything's fine, duh. Like up until that point, I'm just like, this guy is so oblivious it almost hurts.
Mhm.
I it's so abundantly clear, and I mean, even I think David like screams it at him at one point, saying like Otto is like a bastard or something. He's like,
Yeah.
how you don't realize it is astonishing. But yeah, so Viserys at the beginning, it's rough. It's rough. But I mean, by the time they get down to the Dragon's Keep and he um tells her about Aegon's dream and everything, and it's suddenly like, you know, all Team Rhaenyra, it's like, okay, we can get behind this, Viserys.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's got kind of a bumpy start to him. You know, it's not you're not instantly full with love for that character.
Yeah, I think it's due
Um,
to the fact that there's a quote from the book that talks about because the throne cuts him, and it says
right,
when the throne cuts a person, it means the king is unfit to rule, and that Aegon made the throne that way so the king knows the power and knows how to handle it. So we already know that Viserys is like not able to
not fit.
handle
Yeah,
it.
he's not meant to rule the throne. Which actually begs the question: do you think Rhaenys would have ruled better than Viserys if she
100
were
100%.
right? And I
100%.
that's also something interesting that I noticed whenever they so watching that prelude scene where they're announcing that Viserys is going to be heir to the throne and how
Mhm.
Rhaenys, you know, has to, you know, basically hear that she's not going to get her inheritance in front of like hundreds of people and have to keep a
Mhm.
straight face. I don't know how she did that. But whenever Rhaenyra is being named heir and they're going through that process where everyone has to come up to her, you know, all the leaders of the houses have to come up to
Yeah.
her and say, you know, I pledge
Yeah.
my allegiance to you, blah blah blah. The first person that pledges their allegiance is Rhaenys' husband. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like because throughout the episode, there are a lot of comments made about Rhaenys being the queen that never was. And
Mhm.
anytime any of that is mentioned, her husband is very vocal about, yeah, you should have been queen, you know, like this should have been you.
Yeah.
And so for it to jump to like for the first person for us to see that, you know, aligns their leadership to Rhaenyra being her husband, I think says a lot because it's like this is
Mhm.
what he wanted. This is what should have happened. We just had
Mhm.
to wait an entire generation for someone to get it into their heads that a woman could be on the throne. Um but yeah, so speaking of people, the throne titles and all that good stuff. I have a question for you about Damon
Okay.
because when he screams at the brothel, you know, he gets up and he's like, you know, I'm gonna make a public fool of myself and be like, boo my dead nephew, heir for a day, you know. And
I'm built different. You died. I'm
I'm
not.
built different. I can't. my my
Rest.
haters.
Oh, see, but my nephew passed away. Oh, all right.
Oh,
Moving on.
oh. Moving on. Remember how great I am, guys? I was I was noticing whenever he has received his punishment from Viserys, and Viserys was like, you're banished, all that kind of stuff. The events that follow, like the way that Daemon reacts to all of it happening, seems very unlike Daemon's character because when Viserys says, I'm banishing you, leave, Daemon takes like a step forward
Mhm.
and then he backs off and leaves without saying a word. And then when he grabs his girlfriend and leaves King's Landing, he, grabs his dragon like at the Dragon's Keep. Isn't surrounded by all the men that he's just employed and, paraded around the city. He isn't surrounded by anybody. It's just himself and his girlfriend, and they take off in peace. And it's very quiet. And I was thinking about that. I was like, because usually, like, in the way that Daemon reacts to some things, aka he can keep his tongue and other events that are going to happen in the future, you would think that he would like be making a big deal about it, like, oh, my brother's kicking me out because I said something and blah blah blah. And so I was thinking, okay, he said it publicly. He did it so that way everyone could see him. He knew it was going to get back to his brother. I don't think that was a surprise to him at all. Do you think he did it to solidify his fate so that way he would not be named heir and that the
Mhm.
responsibility could be passed to Rhaenyra? Because we know he's smart and we know he's crafty. And I wonder if he did it expecting this outcome.
I do. I do. I think he's really smart in knowing which buttons to push on people and how to make a situation turn out in his benefit, no
Yeah.
matter who needs to die or who gets pissed at him. I think Damon, if you're going to be in a situation with Damon, it's going to be like, well, I get what I want. Screw you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we can even tell throughout the whole episode that he doesn't want the responsibility, and so he was just like, if I say this, here you go, Rhaenyra. So I do think that. Yeah.
Here you go, go girl. Go
Here you
girl.
go.
I support all the girl bosses. He's actually Ken and she's Barbie. And he's just trying to get her on the throne. I mean, in
Okay, all
a,
right, moving on.
I mean, in a not your uncle and not your niece kind of way, but
If they weren't
if they
related,
weren't related,
if
it's
they weren't
very
related, and Rhaenyra wasn't a teenager.
yeah, that too. We don't support that.
So, what I'm gonna bring that into is like normally at this part of the podcast where we bring up like symbolisms or anything that we see can be related back to like other text.
Yes,
So, what we were saying about Emma and how she was giving birth and that it was going to the swords, clink clack, and
yes.
they were clacking, and it showed that the swords were clacking, she was screaming, and he was crying, and she gave birth to those situations. Um,
Words are
it
hard.
they both ended up in death, even though
Yes, yes.
life was supposed to be brought. So I thought that was really, really interesting.
I think that just like furthers the whole foreshadowing of that this
Mhm,
is a tragedy. There is nothing good that is going to come out of this. Like
mhm.
it's pure crap. Like it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, and even like what you were saying with all the color being bright, all of everything's just full of life until Emma dies. But I really loved that Rhaenyra was wearing red and Allison was wearing blue, and it can kind of go into Rhaenyra. She has a strong, feisty personality, and Allison is wearing blue, and she's more very, very conservative, holding herself back, very nervous as a person.
Yeah, she's
So
a
I,
well, and you see her bloody fingers all the time because she has that
mhm,
anxiety pick where she's eating her like hangnails and stuff, and
mhm,
I think that just shows how much of a she's supposed to be this innocent young woman who should have been given a normal childhood, but instead I think she's very smart and very and she knows what's happening around her. I think she very much understands that her dad is a very calculated
mhm.
person, And so her innocence is being diminished a lot quicker than Rhaenyra's, and so she's having to deal with that internally. And so I think physically it's coming out in the way that she's taking it out on her body. She is, making herself bleed. She can't deal with the stress. She can't deal with the fact that she's realizing her father is a scam artist, and
Mm-hmm.
that most of what's happening, the truth behind the scenes of how this kingdom is run is actually pretty dark and full of lies, and nothing is honestly true. And so for her to be wearing blue, to be kind of this angelic presence,
Mm-hmm.
but also knowing so much more at the same time, I think really shows how her character, how she becomes the person that she does. She's
Mm-hmm.
forced to grow up a lot faster than a lot of other characters. She has to burden a lot of knowledge. She has to take on um, responsibilities that she shouldn't at the age that she is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think the colors are so interesting, and also for them to be wearing those colors. And I think Rhaenyra is actually saying at first wearing gold and black, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but like as the show progresses, we know that the color being represented actually gets limited to either black or green. And we're no longer met with all of these outside vibrant colors that kind of show more diversity. um, because I'm sure as the show goes on, there's going to be less and less, okay, who's like, there's gray matter in between whose side you're on. It's going to become
Mm-hmm.
very divisive. You're either team black or you're team green, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no in between.
Yeah.
There's you are one or the other, and I think people start representing that through their clothing.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that later down the line at Rhaenyra's wedding.
Yeah,
But there's also another thing that I noticed that Viserys was eating an egg at the beginning of the episode, and I think that has a lot to do with Emma's fertility and the fact that he's kind of peeling the egg apart and destroying it kind of shows what happens at the end
that's
due
actually,
to
yeah, and
Emma dying,
yeah, Emma
basically.
dying, and the fact that he's been picking at it,
Mm-hmm.
that he's picking at it, and he's been picking at it for a while. That, and she mentions how many miscarriages she's had, how many stillbirths, and
Mm-hmm.
everything. That's someone that's constantly picking away at her body, and her
Mm-hmm.
body never fully heals. I think from those pregnancies, and I think that's evident in the way that she dies. She couldn't
Yeah, I think
carry the
it's also
baby, and so
pretty shown too when she's in the bathtub and she's like,
yeah,
"This is the only place I find comfortable."
yeah. This
So,
is the only place I find peace. I'm only comfy here.
hmm
And so that I never really noticed that he was eating an egg at the beginning, but I do think that was a deliberate and excellent choice.
yeah.
um, yeah, I think the only other part of like symbolism that I thought was interesting was Viserys talking about his dream of seeing
hmm
his son on the throne, and then that compared to the dream that he shares of Aegon's later at the end of the
hmm
episode. And I always thought that Viserys's dream was kind of strange because none of it. I mean, like it could mean a bunch of different things. It could either mean he's driven by madness into wanting a son so badly that he's like hallucinating it. B, he could be honestly seeing into the future because we do know that his son does ascend the throne. It's just not in the way that he is imagining it.
hmm
And then C, it's or is this a just a false nod at what Rhaenyra should get? Like, is he so disillusioned by what he thinks he should want that he doesn't see that it could be good with a woman on the throne? And
hmm
so I thought his dream was so interesting. And then for him to talk about Aegon's dream and how Aegon is talking about how a Targaryen will be on the throne whenever the
hmm
winter comes, and that a Targaryen will unite everyone against the winter and they will succeed. And that's not what happens. And so
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if dreams are a thing in Westeros where it's like there's a nugget of truth to them, or if they're just uh, depictions of madness. I think the more we'll see, the more I can kind of pick up on that. But
There's a quote somewhere I heard. I read or heard somewhere. I don't think it's in the show, but it's basically saying like dream dragon dreams will tear one's core soul or themself. So
Mm-hmm.
I truly think that happens. What happened to Aegon, um, with him becoming obsessed with it and passing it on. We can even bring up Daenerys' older brother Rhaegar,
Right.
and feeling like three heads to make a dragon, and that also goes with Daemon as well. He believed that, and he didn't know about the ice and fire, but he believed three heads make a dragon and all that.
Right.
But because of their flag. But I think with Viserys' dream, I think he wasn't having Aegon's dream. He was having his own dragon vision of
Right.
what happened in that episode, if that makes sense. Because he mentioned something about there will be swords fighting, there will be dragon fire, there will
Mm-hmm.
be people screaming, and we got the Terminate,
The Tarnay.
and we got the little tourney where people were knights fighting with swords and everyone screaming, and then we also got Emma screaming in childbirth and
Right.
dying, and then proceeding, because every Targaryen, not everyone, but most Targaryens get buried with dragon fire. Their bodies are burned, and that can be the dragon fire for his son. That could be the part of what he thought about of his son. But when he visioned his line on the throne, people cheering, I think it truly
Oh.
meant Rhaenyra.
Oh, that's okay. That's an interesting interpretation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you could see like, okay, his son ascending the throne is actually him ascending the pyre that he's burned on. That's
Mm-hmm.
his. He's actually the throne of death, the throne of something that never actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really interesting. Yeah. So I know that later on,
Or Helena.
yes, yes, Helena. Yeah. I think I definitely need to pay attention to what she says, that
Mm-hmm.
all the cryptic things that she says in later
Mm-hmm.
episodes, and really take note, because I think that'll also like play into this. Like, okay, so how do dreams work? What do dreams really mean? And how do they interfere with the plot? So
Yeah,
yeah.
a lot of Targaryens are dragon dreamers. There's some I remember in the books Daenerys is a dragon dreamer because
Okay, that makes
she
sense.
dreamed of that's how she found out about the Song of Ice and Fire. She dreamed of Aegon telling her it, if that makes sense in the books.
Yes.
It was kind of shown in the show a little bit, um, where she was walking through everything
Hmm.
and like saw her son and the burned King's Landing and all that. But speaking of the show, I wanted to go in some correlations into the show and book with this segment called Consult the Text.
Consult the texts. Go to the keep. Go to the keep and consult the texts. Find a grand maester and find out.
hmm
Let's learn more.
So, to start off with the show, one of the first things I noticed that when Rhaenyra and Alicent are holding hands and they're walking from the dragon pit into the Red Keep, I in season 7, episode 1, Cersei is actually painted the bottom of the floor that they're on, the map of Westeros.
Oh, okay. That is so
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. I
And
never
then,
I never picked up on that. Okay, cool.
mm, and then another one, which I kind of think is the obvious one from the show, we see the dragon pit that we first see in Game of Thrones in season 7, episode 7, where Daenerys and Jon Snow and go, and Daenerys makes a comment about this is where dragons live, this is where my people came, blah 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 blah.
Right.
And then the last one connecting to the show is that dagger, which kind of connects to Aegon's dream, Viserys's dream, that she tells Rhaenyra about a Targaryen, even what you were saying about dragon dreams, with about a Targaryen leading the people,
Hmm.
and stopping the Night King, essentially. But Arya uses that same knife to kill the Night King.
Yep. Yep. And that's so interesting, because he's like, yeah, it's a Targaryen that's going to end this winter, and it's
hmm
it's a Stark. It's a
hmm
Stark that does it. it's so fascinating. But yeah, crazy that dagger made its journey that it did for like was it 172 years
Yeah.
plus that to make it from not only Aegon and manifesting this dream and what's going to happen, but to the actual last moment where it is put into the stomach of the Night King, and it and then the winter ends. Well, I guess not really the winter, but the army of the Night King ends, and
Yeah, the whole end of the world
yeah,
shitting.
yes, and yeah, it's just fascinating. But yeah, I think I loved that correlation. I think that was
Hmm.
such a fun nod to Game of Thrones fans. I think they made a lot of excellent, winks and nudges to keep, fans interested
Hmm.
and invested in the show. And also to get you thinking what's going to happen from here from here till then. What events will transpire?
Okay, so to connect it to the books, one of the first obvious things is that in the Book of Fire and Blood, the chapter that this episode is based on, that is also the title of the episode, is called Heirs of the Dragon,
Mm, and that's the same
which
chapter name.
which is kind of
Cool.
one of the first things in the books compared to the show is that Rhaenys' son was also in the line to inherit the throne since she is in that whole line and whatnot. And then another one was that Jaehaerys, who is the king deciding everything and all that, he had two other kids, off-screen kids, who he had a son and a daughter. And the son, it's kind of funny why like no one wants him to ascend the throne. Um,
He's the Meg of this Family Guy troupe here.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
he's just
It's simply because no one likes him and he's a nerd.
no one likes you. Just go sit in your corner and color.
Yeah. And his daughter is too busy running a brothel.
Oh, slay. Okay, we support a women in business.
So she was like, I'm too busy with this. And then his daughter had a bastard son who showed up to Westeros on elephants, full Aladdin style.
Bye. Oh my gosh, that
And
is.
that's all he did, and no one was impressed.
I was
So,
like, just turn around, dude. This is not.
yeah.
It's like
From
this.
back home.
Those like cars. Like you'll be standing in a parking lot and you'll hear like
Mhm.
someone on the highway going like suddenly just like hitting the gas and their engine goes like
Yeah.
brrrr. Like it's like that, and you're just like, wow, I'm so impressed. I want to have your
Or
babies.
like
Okay.
trucks that look like monster trucks for no
Yes, like
reason.
with the
Like,
giant wheels and everything. Yes.
yeah, that's kind of that
Yeah, that's just
comparison.
I have elephants. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and
Cersei Lannister would have loved him.
oh my gosh, the pomp and circumstance. It Are we sure? Are we sure he's not a Lannister? Are we sure? With the
And
pageantry and the dramatics?
yeah,
We
someone should
sure?
look into that if he's half Lannister, half Targaryen.
Oh, plot twist.
Yeah. And then another one that I noticed was that when Rhaenyra goes to the Dragon Keep and drops off her dragon, in the books, the Dragon Keepers are described as like warriors. And in the show, they kind of wear like monk like clothes, but in the book, they have black armor that looks like dragon scales, and they're
Ah,
known to
that
kind
is
of be
cool.
like knights, you know. But in the show, they kind of look like they pick up the dragon's poop instead of.
They really do. They do look like they are like the zookeepers of the dragons, which is kind of
Mhm.
crazy because I would think like, especially with how much the Targaryens value their dragons, that they would like, I don't know, pay the people who take care of them like handsomely, but I guess they're just like 1 coin a week for you. Thanks for not burning up and dying. Come back next week and you don't get free dental. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they're like, we really don't give a, we don't care about we don't care about what happens to you.
they probably need to go on strike, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
We support it. We support those on strike.
Well, of course.
We support unionization.
And then another one was Cornelius. He is not. on the council yet. Because he is still pissed that his wife did not get the Iron Throne
Oh, LOL. So he doesn't join it until later in the books.
later down the line, yeah.
Okay, that kind of makes a little bit of sense because he's so passionate. I mean, he is a die-hard fan of his wife, and I have
Hmm.
mad respect for that. I mean,
Hmm.
honestly, that's more the Barbie Ken relationship right there. He's
Especially
just
when they
Ken.
were gossiping at the tournament, yeah.
Oh my gosh, they are so what goals, honestly. I mean, he just wants his wife to be the CFO so badly. But yeah, he's so real for that. But yeah, that's interesting that they went ahead and
Hmm.
included him. But I guess because they were talking about the crab feeder, they were like, we might as well associate him with that event.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of feel like it was easier for the plot to add him
Yeah.
in because they would have to make like 20 episodes if they wanted to add
That's
every single detail in.
that's so true. Especially
And
because
then,
the book reads more like a textbook, right? It doesn't read like an actual narrative.
yeah, it's like a history book.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And then another one was that Emma actually, the book just says she dies during childbirth. It never says how. But
Oof, they took
Jaeha,
they took
yeah,
liberty with
they took creative decision making. And but then again, even in the book, everything is up to like interpretation. So maybe that did happen to her. So who knows?
that. That's a
Um,
good point.
but Jaehaerys's mother and Viserys's great grandmother, yes,
Yeah.
she actually her first husband, who was a full blood Targaryen, dies, and she ends up having marrying another husband in like her I want to say like in her 50s, maybe late 40s ish. And he's like, I want an heir, I need an heir, and so she gets pregnant, having that awful C-section and
But does she
everything
die that
that.
way too?
That's how she died in the books.
Holy crap. Yeah, that's like everything that happens with the Targaryens is very cyclical. It's I don't know if there's been full investigation into this, but it almost feels like the family is kind of cursed to
Hmm.
relive a lot of its tragedies, just like decades apart or generations apart, I guess is
Hmm.
better to say. Um, but I also, I mean, yeah, the dying of C-section during this, with the kind of medical knowledge that they have is not uncommon because you are going to die that way. But it just seems very just the way that everything happens so conveniently, especially with how their history develops is very interesting. So yeah, that parallel between the great grandmother and Emma is is interesting.
I don't know if it's happened or not in the book to Emma. It just says she dies during childbirth. But what I like to think is that it actually did happen,
I would like to think that it's
which
actually
is not,
fact.
which is not. Well, I don't like to think it like that, but you know what I mean.
No, I totally get what you're
Um,
saying. Yeah.
and then another last obvious big one is that in this timeline, Rhaenyra is a what 6, 7 year old,
Oh,
and
what?
Allison is like maybe 15, 16.
Oh, I didn't realize
And
that Alicent's supposed to be older than Rhaenyra.
so she basically turns into like an evil stepmother,
Oh,
and they
okay.
hate
So
each
it's kind
other.
of that is so interesting that they kind of leveled their age for the show. That
Hmm.
definitely adds for, I think, better conflict because it's definitely more
Hmm.
advanced and complicated with that relationship. But I had no idea that Alicent was supposed to be that much older than Rhaenyra. I figured if they were older or younger than each other, it would only be by like a couple of years. But that's like almost twice her age.
Yeah. I think there's also another thing to where Allison went to go read to him when he was like dying on his deathbed, not right after
Oh,
Viserys dies. When
not when
he's,
Emma, not when Emma passes.
yeah, I think it's somewhere in the middle of that. But
Gotcha.
those are all of the comparisons I pick or that I could remember to pick up from like the book.
Cool. Well, it sounds like in general though they did a pretty good job bringing it
Hmm.
to screen,
Hmm.
and making it as epic as it is. I think this. I just really I have such a soft spot for this episode in my heart. I think they did just such an excellent job on all fronts. Um,
Me too. I really thought it was a great introduction
It was
into showing
such a
us
good,
the
such a
tragic, the
good.
heartbreak, the love
The
of everything,
love, the suffering, the pain,
of everything that's gonna happen.
and the costumes.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to our very first podcast episode and for wanting to stick around and listen to us speak about this because this is the realest podcast you will ever find.
The realist, absolute certified. It's been confirmed by multiple sources. Yeah,
I literally called Amelia Clark herself.
yeah, we're that legit.
I made sure to consult with every Targaryen.
We consulted with all of the people that are blonde and covered in blood, and we made
Mhm.
sure. We made sure we check our sources here.
And everyone that has a pet dragon too. Like
Yeah, them too. Yeah, we're
don't
not
worry
skipping
about that.
out. Yeah, we're making sure to cross all our T's and dot all our I's here.
Exactly. So we're gonna be trying to do every episode on a Monday.
What a great way to start the week.
I know you can start your week with us. And thank you for listening once more. The storm broke,
The dragons danced,
and
and we
we
watched.
watched.
Thank you.